The following is a fan-based video review under fair use. Flash Gordon is owned by Studio Canal, Universal Pictures, Dino De Laurentiis, Mike Hodgers, Queen, Harris Entertainment, and King Features Syndicate. Please support the official release. What's up? It's Big Jack Films here, and welcome to another review. A long time ago, in a small town in Modesto, California, far, far away, a young boy grew up with adventure stories and movie serials on television. These events had him grow up into one of the most ambitious storytellers and filmmakers of all time. That man was George Lucas. The inspiration for his work came from many sources, and his love of film sparked after many experimental films until studying at the University of Southern California, where he met many friends, including one Francis Ford Coppola. You know, this guy. For which he made his first two films, THX 1138 and American Graffiti. During that time, his imagination would later point him to the stars, being nostalgic for his days watching movie serials on television from the likes of Buck Rogers and one comic-inspired hero named Flash Gordon. Inspired to tell these stories he grew up with to a new generation, and with the rise of the sci-fi genre with Planet of the Apes and 2001: A Space Odyssey, he pitched the concept to the current right holders, but unfortunately they declined to let this auteur young filmmaker and fanboy direct such a large concept. Which sucked for them, because then George made Star Wars. By total accident and gamble, Star Wars has become one of the most popular franchises and game changers in film history, as well as the most popular sci-fi series ever made, with 9 films, spin-off movies, TV shows, toys, video games, and years worth of angry, passive-aggressive fanboys who have hated it for over 20 years.
You haven't been happy since the special editions! Admit it, Lucas Hounds!
Meanwhile, on the other end of the Hollywood spectrum, we have our favorite mega movie producer, Dino De Laurentiis, still struggling to find a film to rival Steven Spielberg's Jaws, having produced the 1976 King Kong and the impressive Jaws knockoff Orca. But after 5 months of cashing in, it looked like Dino now had to compete with Lucas and his sci-fi kids movie to become the top box office movie in charge.
Well, with the rights holders missing out on big box office dollars, it only made sense to work for the Italian mega producer, leading to a 1980s pre-post Star Wars ripoff. No. 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 God, no! Okay, fuck it. It's the kick-ass LSD-induced cult classic Flash Gordon.
The movie stars Sam Jones as Flash Gordon, an American football player who, along with Dale Arden, played by Melody Anderson, are returning to New York City after a long vacation, until the plane they are passengers on crashes into a laboratory of Russian scientist Dr. Hans Zarkov, played by Topol. Both Flash and Dale become unwilling passengers on board Zarkov's rocket ship as Zarkov sets a course for the planet Mongo. Arriving on Mongo, Flash and his companions find the planet is under the rulership of the evil Emperor Ming the Merciless, played by the late Father Merrin of The Exorcist, Max von Sydow. as he plans to attack Earth with natural disasters as he bids to destroy the planet itself. Realizing that Earth and the human race are in mortal danger, Flash decides to unite the kingdoms of Mongo and combine the forces of rivals Prince Barin, played by Timothy Dalton, and Prince Vultan, played by Brian Blessed, to rescue Dale, who is to become Ming's wife, and defeat Ming, and as Queen would put it, so what's my thoughts on this Star Wars ripoff? Well, I gotta be honest and take it back a little. It's less of a ripoff and more of a cash grab. A film like Star Odyssey is more of a ripoff with a similar plot and the use of laser swords. However, given Star Wars is more of a tribute to George Lucas's love of the sci-fi serials of the 1930s, Flash is more so the same. But as a big-budget intentional adaptation of the classic serials from its creativity, sets, designs, and special effects, which is meant to be a positive in this matter, and the movie also feels like a film I would have enjoyed in my youth, even only watching it recently. It has a fun charm and reminds me a lot of films like Felix the Cat the Movie, with a fish-out-of-water story and its bonkers concept and designs. The characters are pretty great. Flash is your classic hero. While he is a famous football player who is flung into a wacky space adventure, he takes the change honestly pretty tame, with a sense of charm and charismatic heroism. His physical skill as a sports athlete really come in handy taking on Ming's guards and the baddies that inherit this universe. Sam does a great job in Flash's physical stature. However, all of his dialogue, believe it or not, was dubbed over by a totally different actor. This was because the production didn't care for his voice and found Flash thick and dull, which is honestly unfair to Sam. Not to mention, due to Sam's agent unarguable terms, he couldn't return to record his dialogue in ADR, so the choice to dub him with another actor felt like a rushed decision.
Wake up. Dale, wake. We're okay.
Wake up. Dale, wake. We're okay.
But despite all that, when I think Flash Gordon, I think Sam in the role, and he's a fun guy to be around, always cracking jokes and having fun on the adventures that await him. Then we have our leading ladies. Yeah, there's two of them this time around for Flash to tingle with. Dale, while whiny at first, does hold her own as a tribute to the classic days of damsels in distress, but does add that Princess Leia spunk that started with Star Wars. She reminds me a lot of Lois Lane in the original Superman with Christopher Reeve.
Flash, I love you, but we only have 14 hours to save the Earth.
Princess Ura is a bit more complicated. While she comes off as a slick but seductive villainess in a way, she gets a good character arc finally realizing the evil her father Ming has inflicted upon the universe. She starts off with selfish desires for power to only give that power to those of pure of heart, and that's not something you see often with characters, let alone a villain.
You have to persuade me much better than that.
The other characters like Dr. Zarkov and other classics in the universe are more so badass or comic relief. Dr. Zarkov especially. There's times he's funny, but he's more so your tech guy to move the plot forward.
That's no mistake.
Prince Barin, however, reminded me of the classic heroes of the Hollywood's golden age, like Errol Flynn and Tyrone Power. Charming, noble, and gentlemantic. And it's no wonder because actor Timothy Dalton would end up playing James Bond. He does have rivalry with Flash, but learns to honor him and joins him in the battles with Ming. Huh, why does this scene look so familiar to me?
Will you join us, Tommy?
Plus, a lot of Flash's comrades, let alone the film, feel like precursors to the Thor films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I sense a bit of an inspiration from this film. However, the funniest and best comrade in the group is Vultan, played by the very talented and eccentric actor Brian Bless, who has quite the resume in the sci-fi and fantasy genre, from Lord Loxley from Robin Hood Prince of Thieves, the voice of Clayton in Disney's Tarzan, and Boss Nass in The Phantom Menace. Man, what a wasted opportunity for George Lucas to have Boss Nass say this in the Battle of Naboo.
Stand by, my Gungans! Dive!
The character is honestly one of the highlights of the film, always energetic and full of thrills. This is a character we've seen in tons of other films and stories, like Gimli in The Lord of the Rings, and Brian fits the part perfectly as a barbaric bearded warrior, always looking for a challenge and respecting his opponents in battle. A real sportsman in the art of war. In fact, shooting battle scenes, Brian was so overdramatic and full of action that director Mike Hodgers would calm Brian down, stating, in a quote Brian would always say at Comic-Cons,
Cut, cut, cut! Brian, we put in the special effects. I have never, in my life felt such a tit. Putting all the bloody special effects in myself. I forgot that they do it, because nothing happens. Well, nothing comes out of it, does it?
The villains, however, are very creative in design, especially General Clytus. I love his metallic movable gold mask and his death-like robes, coming off as a robotic capitalist.
How can I express my gratitude?
Plus, the foot soldiers have some cool ideas. With their robotic-looking weapons, both projectile and their gold swords look pretty kick-ass. However, of course, the main villain, Emperor Ming, really shines here with his distinct design, costuming, and threatening presence on the poster. While not the most intimidating villain I've seen, Max von Sydow looked like he was having a lot of fun with this role. And given I've only recently appreciated more of his work, it's incredibly sad with his recent passing.
Pathetic earthlings. Hurling your bodies out into the void without the slightest inkling of who or what is out here.
Such a great actor, and here he's just a cool, badass dictator, playing a wizard-themed emperor who rules the universe with an iron ring. Literally. His ring is the key to all his power, like the Mandarin in the Iron Man comics. So this is where Spaceballs took its reference from.
Oh, shit. No, not that. Yes, that.
I mean, can you imagine having all the powers of the universe with just a simple ring? That would be just sick. What, this? Oh, I wouldn't worry about it. I got it in my cereal box this morning. I'm sure it's not going to be relevant anytime soon. Oh, who am I kidding? Every storyline has a magic ring at some point.
While I said Flash was a Star Wars ripoff, it's more of a cash grab with the rise of the superhero genre, starting strong a few years prior to Superman the movie. At the time, Warner Brothers began work on Batman, which took 10 years to get off the ground, but that's a whole other story. After Star Wars and Superman made it big at the box office, becoming the first massive blockbusters along with Jaws, it seemed fitting that the comic book sci-fi genre was the way of the future. After a few box office dulls in the late 70s, Dino De Laurentiis decided to jump into the genres, and with hindsight from the rights holders of Flash Gordon, he made a deal with the holders and Universal Pictures to produce a big-budget adaptation of the classic comics, as well as hiring writer Lorenzo Semple Jr., who he had worked with previously on King Kong to pen the script, given he had major experience in the comic book genre with the majority of episodes for the 1966 Adam West Batman series. As well, Dino hired director Mike Hodgers to make the picture because he liked his face?
Odd way to choose a director. That's like getting Tim Burton to do a remake of Eraserhead because they have the same hair. Although given his director's credit recently, that wouldn't surprise me.
The production design and special effects are immensely colorful and fun to watch. Given this is the Dino De Laurentiis production, the sets are massive in scale, giving a great sense of size to the world that Flash and his friends explore. Now, normally I don't discuss directors of photography, but in this case, given it's considered a Star Wars knockoff, the film was shot by Gil Taylor, who shot the original 1977 film prior. I think that was the intention from De Laurentiis. Since he was cashing in, why not hire the same photographer? I think down the road I'll discuss photographers in future reviews, because they definitely deserve more mention in their efforts. The special effects you'd think would be on par with, if not a little cheaper than Star Wars, but in this film they are very noticeably fake. In fact, you can mistake them for the effects in the original Flash Gordon serials of the 1940s. But to my surprise watching it, I think that was the intention. It was both a tribute to the comics and the serials in the past, the same way Star Wars was, and as a tribute, it's rather charming, and I get a good giggle out of it. You know it's fake, of course, and other films at the time were much more impressive, such as The Empire Strikes Back, but you can appreciate the practical effects with the model spaceships and worlds and the blue screen work, which was a decent effort for the time.
Flash! Ah! Savior of the universe!
However, one of the best essentials to the film as a whole, and what makes it so memorable to this day, is the music by the legendary rock band Queen.
and I might be a minority on this, but the song Flash is easily one of my favorite songs the band, along with Freddie Mercury, have ever produced. At the time, you'd think a film like this would have a big orchestral score, but this film had the balls to have not only a rock-based 80s soundtrack, but to include one of the most influential bands in music history. Like I said, the main theme is iconic and has been used countless times in parodies and commercials. Hell, with the DC movies and with the likes of The Flash, you'd think this theme would make a comeback on the big screen, right? Well, to be fair, the song made an appearance in the Flash CW TV series. However, for a movie, I feel the song would come in handy more for a trailer, similar to the first Iron Man, using the song by Black Sabbath. Both have nothing to do with their superhero counterparts, but it works. Seriously, imagine you're in a movie theater or in Hall H at Comic-Con and they play this trailer and then this pops up in the titles.
Flash.
Oh yeah. That ironic, and it'd be so damn cool. The rest of the soundtrack is not half bad either. When it's meant to show its science fiction aspects, it's quiet and early, and when the action kicks in, so does those rocking guitars, and it's pure 80s awesomeness. The soundtrack was pretty popular on the charts when the film came out, mostly in the UK due to Queen's popularity, and to be honest, I think for most people, the soundtrack to Flash Gordon is easily the best damn thing to come out of one of the best Star Wars ripoffs during the original trilogy's run. I know I keep bringing up Star Wars in this review, but honestly, there's no avoiding it. But in terms of quality, we need to discuss some minor flaws. As much as this film takes Star Wars and adds that 60s Batman camp due to its writing, it's also in the film's quality. And that's saying something because Dino De Laurentiis was still a mega-time producer who was known to give movies a massive epic scale. But at the time, this was during Dino's more frustrating and obsessive days as a producer. In 1975, Jaws became the biggest film of all time, despite production hell, and from a director whose career seemed to have been tossed overboard before it started. Dino probably saw Spielberg's film as a waste of professional money and effort, but when the film became the first massive blockbuster in film history, Dino probably felt a little jealous that a small-time kid can make the highest-grossing film without any effort and years of experience, which for Dino, he had to learn the hard way. So it seemed out of retaliation, he did everything to make a film bigger and better than this shark movie eating up film dollars. While King Kong was still his greatest triumph in my eyes during this period, films like Orca was doing the obvious without being subtle. But when Steven's friend George Lucas put out Star Wars, Dino was desperate to double his efforts. And the result, while cheesy and a lot of fun, ultimately backfired on him and he was spending money in the wrong places. For example, after something like Star Wars, having models look intentional to the serials at the time wasn't fooling audiences. Not to mention in some scenes, the blue screens look awful and the acting can be a little subpar. But it doesn't really take away from the charm and humor of the film. In fact, despite its poor box office reception, it did much better in Europe, most notably for De Laurentiis' reputation and Queen's incredible soundtrack. However, it did eventually become a cult classic here in North America, and 80s kids who grew up with the film and have entertainment careers of their own have paid homage to the film in their content, including Family Guy creator Seth MacFarlane, who had Sam Jones reprise his role as himself and Flash Gordon as a plot point in the Ted film series.
Death to Ming!
Which is where I first really discovered the film, and so have the new fans due to Ted's popularity with preteens. There's also been word since the film's release of a sequel or reboot, but considering Dino's failure with sequels from King Kong Lives to Hannibal, it's safe to say it's unlikely that we'll be getting a so-called The Flash Awakens anytime soon.
I did sign for a six-picture deal. Five-picture sequel. My movie's in development. Usually when you hear that in Hollywood, it just means I don't have the money. But here's the deal about Flash Gordon. It's been picked up over these past years by reputable, well-established producers that have the financing. How many petitions do we need?
That'd be awesome. Thank you. That'd be awesome.
Although in the 80s and 90s, there was a cartoon series with the voice of Tuxedo Mask, Toby Proctor, in the role of Flash, as well as a short-lived live-action TV series that some seem to forget. And maybe it's just me, but if Dino's planned Prince Kong cartoon series was to take the same look as the Flash cartoon, it probably would have sucked as much as those other King Kong cartoons in my books.
So do I recommend Flash Gordon to a first-timer as a cult classic? Yeah, actually.
Overall, it's just fun camp. Out of all the Star Wars ripoffs, it's definitely one of the better ones. I mean, hell, I'll watch this over Star Odyssey or Turkish Star Wars anytime. The production design and cinematography is massive, the movie is full of glow and is extremely colorful, the cast is a lot of fun, the action and effects, despite being cheap, have a real charm, and the music by Queen kicks some serious ass. It's obviously not for everyone, but if you enjoy a cheap 80s sci-fi up there with Dune, Highlander, or Q the Winged Serpent, this movie is definitely a fun trip with a few friends and a couple of smoke passes, and I can honestly go back and watch it a few times again if I had some friends up. While I hold Kong 76, Orca, and Romeo and Juliet to much higher regards, this is definitely great entertainment for the whole family and one of Dino De Laurentiis' brighter pictures. And in my opinion, the film deserves a lighthearted 8 out of 10. It's classic comic book goodness and worth being called a cult classic, if not more. So, check it out. Dim the lights, grab some popcorn, pump up that Queen soundtrack, and join Flash and his friends to save the universe in this cheeky sci-fi adventure of 80s cinema.
And that was my review of Flash Gordon for its 40th anniversary, and honestly, it was worth picking up on Blu-ray on Amazon. It's a nice space gem. But of course I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Flash Gordon and it as a cult classic? Let me know in the comments section below. So until the next video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. This is Big Jack Films, signing off.
Please enter your contact destination.
Year 70.5. Cosmic Era. Archangel.
Acknowledged. Commencing contact.
Archangel checking in. This is BJF-92. Requesting permission to contact.
This is Captain Romius of the Earth Force's Archangel. Permission granted, old friend. How's our greatest warrior recovering from his most recent battle?
I've had worse, although my power's been finally unlocked. God, it's taken me forever to get it back up and going.
Did you try turning it off and on again, like most of your primitive technology on Earth?
You still gotta work on your jokes, Captain. Anyway, have you reached out to our allies in space?
Not since your request. We were able to reach text contact with the Galactic Republic, and no word from Starfleet either.
Damn, they must have been busy on their end.
What about getting in contact with Linkara? Surely he has some friends in Starfleet, given he's using their tech on Comicron.
Hey, I've only bumped into the guy twice. In fact, if I even asked him, he'd probably be of no help to us.
What's this all about, sir? Why the sudden gathering of all our space forces?
Well, Captain, about a year ago, the Empire invaded Earth under the alliance of the Dark Lord Gabalor.
The enemy has returned?
That is correct, Captain. If another attack is to come, we need to be ready for anything. I sense there's more of our enemies out there who are uniting against us. Send your fleet to Coruscant. I'll fax you the treaty papers to be signed to make sure your presence is known there as an ally to this call to action.
Then what, sir?
Scout out the galaxy for any signs of enemy threats. Report them to me and await my orders. But until then,